All right, everyone. So, yeah, let's get started. Today's webinar will be about GPT-3, our latest integration with our custom AI voices in Resemble. And the idea behind it is that now you can create instant AI voiceovers and dialogues. So that's something I'm quite excited to share with you all today. So today I'll be talking a little bit more about Resemble, what we have right now. We'll be going over a few GPT-3 demos, and then after that, we'll be asking and answering questions at the end. And I want you guys, if you guys have any questions, just start even asking them now through the Q&A option here, just so that we have questions at the end and we'll be able to get through all of them as well. So yeah, just a reminder to do that. So let's get a little bit into Resemble. Over the last couple of years, we've been working hard on bringing all sorts of different features and products to expand our voice tech offerings. So we started off with voice cloning, and then we added Resemble Fill, Resemble CopyPast, Resemble Localize, Marketplace, the API, and now the GPT-3 integration. I'll be going a little bit into these just so you guys know, what Resemble has to offer. And the idea is that now you're able to use voice tech in all sorts of different scenarios, whether it's call centers, voice assistants, advertisements. There's so many more use cases that you're able to use Resemble's voice tech for. So for voice cloning, you're able to, either record your voice on the platform itself, or you're able to upload data. And I recommend when you're uploading data, just upload the highest quality possible, and that'll give you the best results. Then we have Resemble Fill. This is our feature where, if you want to replace a couple of words in a sentence, you're able to do that. And it works really well for tedious recordings where, you have like a customer's name and you want to replace it in a sentence, or business hours, so on, just to customize different options. This is kind of what it sounds like.
To speak with the sales representative, press 1.
Awesome. Okay. So that was the original. And this is like it tweaked a little bit.
To speak with one of our sales representative, press 1.
So you can add in like a couple of words there to customize it. You can add in business hours, so on. And again, so now we also have Resemble Localize, and that's the ability for multilingual support. So you can have the voice speaking in multiple languages, which is great for worldwide adoption. So here in Canada, right now we have English and French as like most of the languages of the content that we record in. So this is great for, just recording in English and then having the French version generated, or vice versa. And we are able to support over 50 languages. This is kind of what a sample of that sounds like.
A computer once beat me at chess, but it was no match for me at kickboxing. Ein Computer hat mich einmal beim Schach besiegt, aber beim Kickboxen war mir nicht gewachsen.
So similar voice, just in different languages. We're able to have emotional kind of gradients, so you can just tweak it till it's just perfect. There's copy paste, where you can use style transfer to transfer style from one audio clip to another. And then we also have our API. So, you can use it for all sorts of more technical aspects. For example, creating voice assistants, using it for video games. So it's really useful for that. And this is something that we're going to be launching soon as well. So this is just a sneak preview. We'll be having a marketplace of professional voice actors. So you'll be able to pick from a bunch of different voices and filter by different use cases. So you have professional voice actors that you can use right away for your different projects. And then finally, here is the GPT-3 integration. So just to give a little bit of background on GPT-3, it's an advanced AI that produces human-like text. And this is something that's been really exciting that came out. We have 3 current uses of it in Resemble. So you can use it for advertisements, use it for dialogue, and Helpdesk. And this is something that we'll also be looking at in our demos soon. But the idea behind it is that now you're able to create this instant audio that's aware of, what's being said or different information that's there. So you don't need to have pre-recorded audio. This is especially, amazing for video games. So you can have completely custom experiences where somebody could be talking to a game character there, and you don't have to have a voice actor recording all these like different audio clips for that. You can have them instantly generated, and then with Resemble's voices, you can have them come to life as well. So that's something that we're pretty excited about. This is one of our cool demos that we created. So we created a voice assistant on an Alexa skill using Albert Einstein's voice. So we cloned his voice, and we used GPT-3 to answer as if Einstein would have. So I'll just show you the demo, and you can kind of see what I mean there.
Hey Albert, what's the meaning of life?
I was trying to figure that out myself. I don't have an answer, and neither does anyone else.
Hey Einstein, what's the meaning of life?
What a silly question. The meaning of life is 42.
So as you can see here, it answered exactly how, Einstein might have. And this is something really cool. And I personally found fascinating how like Einstein spoke. So before this, I didn't actually know what he sounded like, but using Resemble, we're able to kind of clone his voice. So this was kind of like a cool application of the
Hey
technology.
Albert, what's the
And you can use it for, different voices. So for example, you can see this being used as for celebrity voices, where you can have an Alexa skill where you can talk to a celebrity and answer like they would. All right, so now we'll get into our Resemble interface, and this will be more of like an interactive demo to show you guys how it works. And just to say, like, this link is just custom for my particular thing. You'll be able to access it within your account as well and create projects. Perfect. So this is kind of what the account page looks like. Hopefully you've all had a chance to sign in and check it out. Awesome. Okay, so we'll get started with one of our first demos here, where we have Helpdesk. So this is where you can use it for more of like a kind of customer service type of scenario. And I'll show you exactly kind of what that would look like. So as you can see, our interface here is still the familiar one. The GPT-3 edition, we added it on the top right here, where you can kind of pick the different use cases that we have. So for Helpdesk, advertisements, and dialogue, and then you'd be able to give it a couple of prompts. So this is important. So you want to add in something that, somebody might ask. So for example, here I added, what would you like to know? And here, like, suppose a customer is asking, I'm at the store, what can I buy for under $2? So in a new text box here, you can just click the pencil icon here, which is the AI generated auto-completion, or you can click the button right here, which is AI text generation. Both of them work. And it'll look at the context and it'll generate an answer. So as you can see, it generates something right away that's, contextually aware. So, and then you can listen back to this.
What would you like to know?
I'm at the store, what can I buy for under $2?
That's a great question. You can buy a variety of snacks and drinks.
So as you can see here, you can have somebody kind of answer using like our custom voices as well as the AI generated auto-completion. So you can try some more versions of that. And yeah, so here you have something, 5 items for $3.49. So you can see like it's aware of kind of the questions and the queries that you ask, and then generates responses based on that. All right, so now let's try. So I created another one using a language demo. So just to show that GPT-3 is able to also recognize different languages and generate answers based on that. So let me again pick the category here, Helpdesk. And here I have in French, the prompt is, how can I help you? And then somebody's asking, what are your business hours? And as you can see, somebody's asking that in Spanish. So when you click the AI generate auto-completion, this is pretty exciting. So as you can see here, it recognizes that somebody asked a question in Spanish, and it generates a response using business hours that are in Spanish as well. So you can, again, have it auto-generate these responses without you having to program it. It could be looking at, some sort of information that you give it or your website, and then be able to answer these questions right away. So if you hear this is kind of what it sounds like.
Bonjour, comment puis-je vous aider?
¿Cuáles son sus horarios comerciales?
And then obviously, so this is like the French voice, so it would still sound French, but this is what it would sound like.
Los horarios comerciales sont de lunes à viernes de 9:30 à 18:00.
So as you can see, this is kind of speaking a Spanish sentence with like a French accent. But if you choose one of her Spanish voices, it would have worked. So that's kind of like our Helpdesk demo. Then we can look at our dialogue demo. So in this scenario, I have a couple of game characters. So here again, you just pick dialogue here. And this is where you enter conversation that might have. So you give it a couple of prompts. So here we have Tarkos, who will say, I will travel all over the land till I find treasure. And Merlin's asking him, what will you do once you find the treasure? So you can, again, click the AI generate auto completion button here. And you can see he responds with something that you can use in a game right away. You can see here Merlin's still asking a couple of questions. And yeah, so that's kind of, a dialogue scenario that could play out in a game. And using our game character voices, this is what it could sound like.
I will travel all over the land till I find the treasure.
What will you do once you do?
Why then, I will live happily on this land.
What good would that do?
It is enough that I have the claim. The rest is none of your business.
So you can see this was like completely generated instantly, which makes it pretty exciting to use for different scenarios. And then my favorite is the advertisement functionality. This is something that I've used for Resemble as well. And how this works is you enter in your product name. So for example, I can enter in Resemble, and you give it a little description, kind of what the product is about. So I'll say, create synthetic voices. And then again, using the AI generate auto completion button, you can generate ad copy that you can use for your campaigns. And again, so it uses language that, I might have used and generates it instantly and gives you like different ideas that you can use for your voiceovers. So this is one of them. You can try that again and see, what else it comes with. So it recognizes kind of your prompts and creates copy. So again, using, for example, another professional voiceover, this is what it could sound like.
Resemble uses cloud computing to create voices for your apps and games. The voices they create are so realistic and natural that you will believe that you can actually talk to your computer. An easy-to-implement framework for creating voice biometric systems.
Yeah. So that's kind of what it sounds like. Now, if anyone here has like a product they'd like to try, I'd be happy to, live demo that for you guys as well. So just leave in a product name and a description you'd like me to try out, and I can generate some copy based on that. All right, we got Tesla. All right, let me try Tesla first. And we'll do fast, or we'll do electric car and see what it comes up with. So there you go. So it came up with something that's, talking about how it's, energy efficient, talking about, that aspect of the thing. Now, if you wanted to describe it further and say, fast electric car and use that as the parameter, you can do that as well. So this should make it talk about speed. Let's try that. All right, so you can see it generates ad copy that you can use for the product. Let's try a couple other ones. So the iPhone. Perfect, and we'll do let's try that. So there you go. So that's kind of what you can experiment with and try out, like different parameters to use. So I hope that gives a pretty good idea of kind of what the advertisement function is. And also just make sure to keep asking your questions in the Q&A section, and we can get to that in a bit. Let me know if there's any other kind of scenarios you'd like to try as well. But hope that gives a pretty good idea of what to expect when you're looking at, using GPT-3 within your different applications. So I'll switch back to my presentation now. Perfect. And yeah, and I guess we'll be taking questions now. But before we do that, I did want to also make an announcement that we are looking for business development people to come work with us at Resemble. So if you guys know anyone or you're yourself interested, feel free to reach out after this presentation as well. And I'll be also sending up like just a follow-up email just to ask more about your use cases. But I think now we can get into the Q&A. So let's try to answer a few of those questions.
All right, so Glenn asks, the ad category is cool. What use cases are you looking at for this category?
So again, this is completely flexible. So if you have a product that you want to advertise and create any sort of videos or audio on, this would be great for that. So one thing I can think of is, suppose you're an e-commerce founder and you have a bunch of products on your website. This way you don't have to create and hire a voice actor for all the different products that you have. You'd be able to use Resemble's own professional voice actors as well as the technology in order to generate instant ads that you can use for social media or different advertisements that you're running. So that's just one application I can think of. Yeah, anyone who has a product that they want advertised, that's a use case.
Great. Next question from Renee. The question is there a link to the recording after this? And the answer is yes. This is being recorded, and once it's processed, Fawad will go around and share the link with all the attendees.
Yep.
The
Perfect.
next question is from Glenn. Voiceovers for audiobooks require nuance and understanding of the book content. In fiction, characters require distinctions in how their dialogues are read. How does Resemble show up for this kind of use case? So maybe I can field this question here. So most of the voices that we're creating, we like to create voices that are really for niche categories. So in some of the voices that you heard during the demos, you had stuff that was meant for Helpdesk, which sounded, friendly but straightforward, fairly neutral. And the reason for that is because the voiceover talent that we got to record that content also had similar prosody and style while they were reading the content that was given to them. And now for audiobooks, one of the ways that works really well is if you saw the game characters, they were a bit more emotional. They had the right amount of breathing, the right amount of pace and control. It's something that we're actively working on. So a lot of times out of the box, the AI is able to predict from text what the emotions and style should be. But more than that, what we want to allow our users to do is override what the AI should be predicting and try to craft the content in the way that they like. So, if you think a sentence, it's a question, and a question could be like an assertive question or a curious question, and the AI is going to pick one of the two. It probably won't know exactly how to deliver that, but if it's wrong, you can actually go ahead and change that yourself and say, oh no, you know what I wanted a question that had a higher inflection at the end or an upwards inflection. So you're able to manipulate that manually for now. And as you move forward, we're improving what that pipeline looks like. So making it a little bit more feasible for longer form content like audiobooks.
Perfect.
Next question, I guess. For Richard, are there any examples in the gaming industry of the usage of Resemble? If so, are you able to share names of any of these titles? Yeah, I could field that question too. So we have a few game studios that are using this now, both indie and AAA. Unfortunately, I can't name titles yet because they're not published. But if you want to understand how people might be thinking of using these games, I'm sure soon enough you'll see case studies published by us with particular games. But we also have a podcast where we go through and interview people who are in the games industry and kind of just ask them exactly what you're asking us. So if you're interested, we did one with Decimated Games. They're building like a generative procedural game that's procedurally generated. And it makes sense for them to have audio that's procedural or generated as well on the fly. We're working with another game studio that's actively using GPT-3 in order to create the content for the games. And obviously it's hard to create entire game content dynamically, but even having 15 to 20% being randomized or being completely generated really does offer something different every time you play. Hopefully that answers that question. Next question from Vim, a more technical question. Did you guys train your own data set on the GPT-3 architecture? So this was a transfer learning approach. It was the latter. We basically worked with the OpenAI team to come up with really good ability to like transfer learn into certain segments that we've targeted. So initially just focused on dialogue, focused on help desk, and focused on games. Those are kind of the three categories that we felt, focus on advertising. Those are kind of three categories that we saw our users using the most and would be the most obvious to start off with. But if there's anything outside those categories, I'd be happy to hear. And we're always keen to add more and understand what other prompts and what other text categories we can add in the future. Awesome. Next question from Sandeep. How well are you able to maintain the prosody for Indian voices? Do you have support for Indian to other language support? So there's a couple of answers here. We work with a lot of Indian companies that are building content within English, but with an accent. So accents are not a problem for us. We're able to practically do any accent that you throw at it, and it learns fairly quickly. So you don't need a ton of data to do that. So we work with like large edtech companies, again, advertising, mobile apps that are targeting like Indian English voices. And we also have support. We also have on our roadmap support for Hindi and other Indian languages like Gujarati. So if you have a particular language that we don't currently support or you need support for, feel free to reach out afterwards and be happy to help. Alan asks the best question of all, can I create my own voice? You can. It's absolutely free. If you go on Resemble AI, there's a sign up button. You'll be able to go ahead and record your own sentences on the web, and you'll get a voice typically within half an hour. Richard, again, he asks about training the GPT-3 model. I kind of touched on this a little bit previously. It's just we work pretty closely to do transfer learning for particular categories and then construct prompts in a way that they're very safe. One important thing that I missed earlier, since you probably noticed GPT-3 is a language model, so it's able to construct responses that it's going about it itself, and there's some sort of it is completely non-deterministic to a degree. So one thing that we do have is a content filter. What that means is that we're pretty strict in terms of the type of content that it's automatically generating. So if you give it dialogue that is political, it won't generate anything. It actually just gives you a little pop-up saying that it violates our terms and conditions. Same thing with anything that is vulgar, not safe for work. It'll prevent that too. But yeah, if you want to talk more about particular cases, we'll go ahead and reach out and we'll go from there. Glenn, first question from Glenn asks, how can we best engage you in a conversation around business opportunities? Yeah, feel free to reach out either Sakib@resemble.ai, which you see up there, or team@resemble.ai. Or if you go on our website, there's this intercom chat widget on the bottom left, I believe. If you ping us there, we typically respond fairly quickly. And then Glenn's second question, Mandarin and other Chinese dialects. We have support for Mandarin as well as traditional Chinese. We also have support for Korean, Japanese, a bunch of other Far East languages. And as Awad mentioned in the demo, we also have the ability for you to record something that is natively in Mandarin. So the speaker only records data in Mandarin, and we're able to convert that particular voice to English as well, or to another language. So if you're interested in how your voices can kind of transcend borders, feel free to reach out. We can give you a demo.
Perfect. There were some questions asked in the chat as well. So let me try to go through a couple and ask you those. Okay, so yeah, Glenn asked a question about voices for audiobooks, that they require nuance and understanding of book content. In fiction, characters require distinction in how their dialogues are read. How does Resemble show up for this kind of use case? So using Resemble for audiobook dialogues, and how do you make them distinct?
Yeah, I think we touched on this earlier. It was the first question that we answered in the Q&A. So yeah, if any more details are required, just feel free to reach out. We'll give you a demo with longer form content as well.
And one thing that would work great for this would be our copy paste, like Resemble copy paste. So you'd be able to have a sample text kind of how you would want read, and use a different kind of synthetic voice and have it read with that similar cadence as well. All right, let's check out a couple more questions. So Robert's asking, where does it get the data from in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. So GPT-3 inherently has learned language from the internet, which is a good thing and a bad thing, you can imagine. But it has a understanding of language itself, or some sort of understanding of language itself. So the interesting thing is that it's not really doing like some sort of a lookup on the internet and trying to figure out like how to answer or what comes next. It's just looking at what you previously gave it in some cases, or if you're describing an ad, what description you gave it, and just trying to generate something that sounds or is would be relevant for that particular use case. But yeah, there is no the data source is basically the internet.
Yep. GPT-3, what's really exciting about that is that it was trained on like almost 175 billion parameters of the language. Before that, there was only like 10 billion. That was like the last trained model. So this is, again, really exciting in like the AI space. All right, Carter's asking, do you have children's voices?
Yeah, we do. We typically work really closely with particular applications and businesses and try to like figure out which voice actors in our community would be best able to help you. Every voice actor that we work with has like a unique skill set or unique delivery. So our use case is like this technology that we're building. It works really well when we really pair you up with a voice actor that's really talented. So you get the best of both worlds. So in terms of like children, one example is a company that we work with called Fable Studio. They basically have VR movies, and they've done a bunch of other things since then. But the main character in that movie is an 8-year-old girl. So if you listen to her content, she's like speaking as an 8-year-old girl. So she speaks a bit slower, a bit more curious all the time. And yeah.
Perfect. Another question was for the multilingual translation, are we using any Google API? So I guess that would be like Google Translate or something for the demo I showed.
Yeah. So we don't typically do the translation ourselves, the text translation that is. And the reason being is that we could very easily hook into the Google API. What we've seen is that the language for most Google translations, they're very poor, or they're relatively poor still. So it always requires some human tinkering. So we actually recommend that you bring in your own source for translations for the text at least. So whether it is Google Translate, whether it's like you actually have like translators that you're working with, but we kind of depend on you to actually write the right content in that language.
Yep. Okay, so this is an interesting use case question. So got a question saying that I have a mobile app that needs to recite a paragraph to a user in a specific voice. There are 17,000 separate records. With your capabilities, could my app generate each audio on the fly for each user, thus preventing the necessity for us to pre-record, generate, and store all 17,000 audio files?
Absolutely. Yep. We can definitely do that. And if what Fawad showed earlier with Resemble Phil, this is kind of the idea. The idea is like you have a paragraph that's being read by like you got it read by a professional voice actor, and you want to swap in like a different name. It's very common in like product videos that you see, and to make them more personalized. So if you want to swap in different names, you're able to keep the rhythm and the cadence exactly like it is in the ground truth audio. So the audio that you have in the recording, and just swap in different names or different addresses or different bits of information. This is fairly common in dialogue engines. They call it slot filling. The idea being that there are slots that you need to like fill with different prompts and different variables. So we have something very similar to that. And obviously, like because this is being generated via just with AI, the latency to generate thousands of audio clips can take just a few seconds rather than hours or days.
And the best part is that because you have a mobile app, we do have an API so that can connect to that. So you can generate it. So the integration's there as well. All right, we got a couple more questions in the Q&A. So Renee's asking, if I want it to print 500 words or 250 words, how do we set it up in GPT-3?
At the moment, it's we have a fixed configuration of how much it will print or it will generate. So depending on like the content that you're providing it tries to match like the length of the content. So if you have Helpdesk, it will be typically short and prompt, just because most help desks are the answers are relatively short. If you go into game dialogue and you start generating or you start typing in your own dialogue that's relatively long, it'll also generate longer and longer sentences. There is like an upper limit as to like how much it'll generate at once. And that upper limit is approximately set to like 2,000 characters at the moment. So beyond 2,000 characters, it really won't do much more than that. But with dialogue and with help desk, it's really the art is the dialogue that you will write prior to generating anything. It'll use similar lengths when it's generating its own content.
Perfect. And then Glenn's asking, are there licensing considerations working with your voice actors, and what's your pricing model?
Yeah. So with the marketplace itself, it's still relatively early, and we're really like engaged with the actual voice actors on the pricing model. The way that we like to do pricing is uh, do a revenue split between us and the voice actor. As a voice actor, when you bring your voice onto our platform, we keep a log of every bit of data that's being generated, so you can see exactly the usage. And there's an automatic payout at the end of the month, which is basically a defined revenue split between us. So that kind of keeps in check what that looks like, or what the usage looks like for your voice. For the pricing model, we also have certain voice talent that we typically are offering on more of like a custom model. So in some scenarios, if there is a talent that's or if there's a project that doesn't quite fit under any of our typical scenarios, which is like, making games or making apps, etc., then typically we do kind of reach out to the voice talent and connect you with them directly and kind of become mediators in that discussion and try to figure out what's the right pricing model that can make it work.
Perfect. So we got a question here from Rick. I want to provide mental health guidance to people using specific protocols such as cognitive behavioral therapy. Can the GPT-3 input be restricted in that way? So for a specific use case.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are many techniques that we can do. We don't have a category for health guidance or mental health, but if that's a category of interest, we can do something customized for you and make sure that the audio or the text that's being generated is within certain constraints. A good example of this is a help desk. The help desk is basically trained to be helpful and friendly. So no matter how hard you try to get it to, be angry or to be kind of sassy, it just won't do it because it's been fine-tuned in a particular way. And very similar to like this use case of mental health guidance or therapy, we can also construct or constrain GPT-3 in a way that the output is restricted.
Perfect. And then we got another question from Richard. Is there integration with, say, lip sync or other face animation tools in Unity?
Yeah, so we have first of all, with Unity in particular, we have a open source plugin that's available. So it kind of it's all open source, so you can install it, play around with it. It hooks into your Resemble account and kind of gives you the editor within the Unity panel. It also has support for like blend shapes and lip sync. But if you're outside of Unity and you're in another game engine, etc., our API also spits out visemes or phoneme timestamps. What that is basically for with every audio file, we're telling you at which time, which phoneme is being said. So like time, 0.05 seconds, it's an O. At 0.1 second, it's a N. And it's basically telling you what phoneme is appearing at what time. And then you're able to basically use that information and kind of hook it into your animation tool of choice. We're also working on ways to do more direct audio to face animation. So we'll be talking about that more in detail in the next couple of months as we work on that internally.
Yeah, so very exciting stuff going to be coming out there. Steven's asking, so do you have ethnic voices like Black, Hispanic, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do. We have a lot of different options. Obviously, we're still somewhat restricted by the type of data that we're collecting, but there's always a voice that we can find for you. One really interesting thing that we've done in the past is build gender neutral voices, which is like voices that we're building that are completely neutral in gender and being derived from in AI's understanding of voice in general, and some sort of unique characteristics that we can define. But yeah, it's totally possible to have very particular categories of voices or types of voices.
All right, perfect. So yeah, looks like those were all the questions. Again, if you guys have any more questions that you recall after this, feel free to, I guess, email the email there or team@resemble.ai, or use like the intercom chat within Resemble's website. So yeah, so I guess if that's all the questions for today, should be good to go. And yeah, I'd recommend just, trying, using the Resemble app yourself, logging in, checking out the interface. But yeah, it was great to answer a lot of these questions and to be able to showcase like our latest integration. So really happy about that. And thank you all for coming out today. Yeah, so again, feel free to ask any questions you have after this.